The story of the internet began long before anyone could send a meme or watch a cat video online. Behind the world-changing technology we rely on today were two pioneers who laid the foundation for modern communication. Vinton Cerf and Kahn are often called the fathers of the internet. Their groundbreaking work in the 1970s revolutionized how we connect, exchange information, and even live our daily lives. Without their efforts, we wouldn't have the world as we know it today. Hello everyone, welcome back to Speak English Fluently. If you're interested in learning fascinating facts while improving your English, you're in the right place. In today's conversation, we're diving into the lives and accomplishments of Vinton Cerf and Kahn. Stay tuned and make sure to subscribe to our channel for more interesting conversations like this one. Let's get started with John and Emily.
John, did you know that Vinton Cerf and Kahn were the ones who created the Transmission Control Protocol, or TCP? It's one of the core technologies that make the internet work.
Really? I've heard of TCP before, but I didn't know it was connected to these two people. What exactly does TCP do?
Good question. TCP is a communication protocol that manages how data is transmitted over the internet. It breaks down data into smaller packets and ensures that they arrive in the correct order at the destination.
That sounds like a complicated process. So, does TCP work on its own?
Not exactly. TCP works together with another protocol called IP, or Internet Protocol. Kahn and Cerf also helped develop the Internet Protocol. IP is responsible for addressing and routing the packets to their correct destination. The combination of these two protocols is often referred to as TCP/IP.
I see. So TCP organizes the data, and IP makes sure it goes to the right place. That's so interesting. I didn't realize the internet was this complex behind the scenes.
It really is. And without Kahn and Cerf, we might not have the internet as we know it today. Before their work, computers could only communicate with other computers on the same network. They developed the protocols that allowed different networks to connect to each other, which is essentially what the internet is, a network of networks.
That's amazing. How did they come up with this idea?
It all started in the 1970s. At the time, Kahn was working on a project called ARPANET, which was an early network funded by the US Department of Defense. He realized that for networks to communicate with each other, they needed a common set of rules or protocols. That's when he started collaborating with Vinton Cerf, who was an expert in networking at Stanford University.
So they developed the idea together?
Exactly. Kahn had the idea for the architecture, and Cerf helped design the technical details. Their work was first presented in a paper in 1974, and it laid the groundwork for what eventually became the Internet.
It must have been such a groundbreaking moment. Were there any challenges they faced while developing these protocols?
Oh, definitely. One of the biggest challenges was making sure the system could handle errors, like packets getting lost or arriving out of order. That's one of the reasons TCP was so important. It has built-in mechanisms to correct these kinds of problems.
So, if I understand correctly, the internet works because of this system that makes sure data gets where it's supposed to go, even if there are problems along the way.
That's right, and that's why the work of Cerf and Kahn is so crucial. They didn't just create a way for computers to talk to each other. They created a system that's robust and scalable, meaning it can grow and handle more users and data over time.
It's mind-blowing to think about how much the internet has evolved since then. I mean, today we use it for everything: communication, entertainment, shopping. How did we get from their initial work to the global internet we have now?
That's a great question. After they developed TCP/IP, these protocols became the standard for networking. In the 1980s, universities and research institutions started using them to connect their networks, and by the 1990s, commercial networks were joining in. That's when the World Wide Web came into play, and everything really took off.
Wait, the World Wide Web, that's different from the internet, right?
Yes, the World Wide Web is actually just one part of the internet. It's the system of websites and links that we use to browse information. It was created by a different person, Tim Berners-Lee, in the early 1990s, but it was built on top of the infrastructure that Cerf and Kahn developed.
Ah, that makes sense. So, without the work of Cerf and Kahn, we wouldn't even have websites to browse. That's pretty incredible.
Exactly. Their work really is the foundation of everything we do online today. And what's even more impressive is that they had the foresight to design a system that could evolve and grow. When they first developed TCP/IP, they couldn't have predicted things like social media, streaming video, or online shopping, but the system they created has been able to handle it all.
That's true. The internet has become such an essential part of modern life. It's hard to imagine a world without it. Do you know if Vinton Cerf and Bob Kahn are still involved in the development of the internet?
Yes, they are. Vinton Cerf is currently a vice president at Google and serves as the company's chief internet evangelist. He's still very much involved in internet governance and helping shape its future. Bob Kahn, on the other hand, has focused more on research. He's the CEO of the Corporation for National Research Initiatives, which works on developing new technologies.
That's amazing. It's so inspiring to see how their work continues to influence the world. Do they ever talk about what they think the future of the internet will look like?
They do. Both Cerf and Kahn have spoken about the importance of keeping the internet open and accessible to everyone. They're also concerned about issues like security, privacy, and the digital divide, the gap between those who have access to the internet and those who don't. They believe that the internet should be a tool for connecting people and sharing information, not for creating barriers.
That's such an important point. It's easy to forget that not everyone has access to the internet, even though it feels like it's everywhere.
Exactly. And that's one of the challenges we face moving forward, how to ensure that the benefits of the internet reach everyone, not just those who are already connected.
Well, I'm certainly grateful for their work. It's hard to imagine life without the internet. I've learned so much today. Thanks for explaining everything so clearly.
My pleasure. It's fascinating to think about how something we use every day came from the vision of two individuals so many years ago. And speaking of learning, did you want to go over any of the words or phrases we discussed?
Actually, yes. Could you explain what you meant by protocol again? I think I understand, but I want to be sure.
Of course. A protocol is basically a set of rules or guidelines that determine how data is transmitted between devices. It's like a language that computers use to talk to each other.
Ah, got it. So, TCP/IP is the language that computers use to communicate over the internet?
Exactly. You've got it.
Thanks. I'm glad I asked. I also wanted to clarify what you meant by digital divide. That was a new term for me.
Sure. The digital divide refers to the gap between people who have access to the internet and digital technologies and those who don't. It's a big issue because in today's world, access to the internet is crucial for things like education, jobs, and staying connected with others.
That makes sense. It's something we definitely need to work on as a global society. Thanks again for the explanations, John. I've learned so much today.
What an incredible conversation. It's truly fascinating to learn about the pioneers who made the internet possible. Vinton Cerf and Kahn's contributions have shaped the modern world in ways that are almost unimaginable. From creating TCP/IP to continuing their work today, their influence is everywhere. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to keep improving your English while learning about fascinating topics, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next video on Speak English Fluently.